It's that time. One Soccer Direct. Gareth Wheeler, Oliver Platt, AGR with you. We've had a few hours to digest. Jesse Marsch on Monday was handed a brand new contract, which will keep him as head coach of the Canadian men's national team through 2030. A group of private donors, including members of the Vancouver Whitecaps and CF Montreal ownership group, stumped up the cash in order to keep Jesse Marsch here for another 4 more years. 4 more years. I'll get away from that sort of demeanor, but let's get into the timing of it all. I think generally people have taken to Jesse Marsch, and Marsch has certainly taken to this country and the program as well. But is it the right move committing to Marsch now ahead of the World Cup instead of waiting and seeing, Oliver Platt?
Yeah, I think we had this conversation previously, and I said I would have waited until after the World Cup, and I still kind of stand by that. But that being said, this isn't like a cut and dry thing. I think there's going to be a lot of other people who feel great about Jesse Marsch extending before the World Cup, and I do understand the reasons why you'd make that move now. The first one is stability, right? We haven't had a lot of it over the years in Canadian soccer at times, and now there's an opportunity to get some with Jesse Marsch. You know, he would be, I think, the first men's coach to do 6 years uninterrupted. So if he sees through his contract here, he'll probably be top of the pile in terms of games coached with the men's national team at the end of this. So that's a positive. I also think from Kevin Blue's perspective, like you were balancing kind of competing risks here, right? There was the risk of you don't sign him, you have a great World Cup, and then you lose him, and you kind of have to face the music for not having secured him long term. Versus the risk now if you sign him and the World Cup doesn't go well, and then maybe people are asking questions of whether there needs to be a change in direction off the back of that. So I think there was some risk either way, and I think he leaned towards securing Jesse Marsch as being the lesser of the two risks, which again, I get. My hesitation is this. I think as much as we're a developing football country that does need that stability, it's not as if we don't have any good players and we're kind of trying to build towards that. We have a really good team right now. And so I do think there needs to be a bit of focus on the present as well. And Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Moise Bombito, all of these players were born in 2000s. They're going to be 30 in the year 2030 when we have that next World Cup. Stefan Eustáquio, Alistair Johnston, Tajon Buchanan, Derek Cornelius, these players will be beyond 30 by that point. So you really get 3 World Cups with this golden generation, if you want to call it that, of players in the prime of their careers. You have 2022, which came a bit too soon. You have this World Cup this summer, and you have 2030. For me personally, when I'm assessing who do I want to lead that team into 2030, which will probably be the last World Cup for a lot of these guys in their prime, if not the last World Cup period for some of them, I'd want the information from 2026 before I make that decision. That's kind of my hesitation on it, and why I lean towards doing this after the World Cup rather than before. But like I said, I do accept that there's some good reasons for going the other way.
AGR, you're a football connoisseur, especially the international game. And sometimes when a manager does multiple cycles, it can come with varied results. And oftentimes it doesn't always end that way. I mean, Didier Deschamps is the exception, but I mean, he's the captain of France who won a World Cup and is now presided over a side that's won the World Cup as well. So what do you make of a 2-cycle manager? And again, the same question that I asked Ollie, the timing of it all.
Yeah, I don't know if DJ Deschamps is the best example because I felt that his time passed before 22. And granted, I'm of the opinion that I think either of us three, hey, I can speak French. I feel like I could go and coach that team semi-reasonably. Like it's easy when it's like, Kylian, go start on the left wing. Dembele, start up front. It's a little different from Canada where you got different talents, different properties, etc. But to return to Marsch, it's an interesting one because I think from the footballing side, Ollie's right in the sense that we just don't know about 2026. Like, what is it going to look like for the World Cup? Because there is a reality where Canada doesn't win a game and you sit here at square one. It's 22 all over again. Like, you're 3 World Cups, you don't win a game. What's the story? For this, I think it speaks to what Jesse Marsch has brought to this program, that it's obviously been about more than the football, that it's been about the commitment, that it's been about the extra mile. And I can't help but feel that when we've seen the contrast to what's come out of the United States this week with Mauricio Pochettino, who is a top level manager. He's regarded as, as a big coup for the US. But what's this week been about? It's been about his lack of personability with when it comes to squad selection. It comes out that he's already maybe has his eyes on another job before potentially playing before this World Cup has even started. He's flirting with AC Milan, all that sort of stuff. International management is so much more than just the X's and O's. And I think that's why there's been coaches such as a DJ Deschamps, who, again, I personally haven't, he did an excellent job in 2018, the way he brought balance to that team.
Finals last World Cup, AG.
Well, it's in the finals the last World Cup. He's done a great job. But sometimes some of the best tactical managers don't do as well. Hansi Flick struggled with Germany. I was shocked because he was so good with Bayern Munich. It's a bit more about the X and O's, and that Marsch has been willing to go the extra mile to do a lot of off-field recruitment, which he's done an excellent job of. The grassroots side, I think it shows why Canada's willing to commit. I think we'll talk about what Marsch needs to achieve on the field for this to be a success, but it's clear this contract is about so much more than that, or else they wouldn't have had the confidence to sign it as early as they did.
I like how you said that, because I feel that you cannot make a decision like this solely on sporting merit, because I don't think that that's justified yet. It doesn't mean that it won't be come the end of the World Cup, but simply put, Canada competed for 2 trophies in 2025 and failed on both accounts. I mean, that's on Jesse Marsch's record. Has there been some progression in this team? Yes, but how much of that has been incited by Marsch based upon what Herdman was able to do, and how much is it the fact that you have a bunch of really good players who have entered their prime? Look, this isn't a knock. This is the debate about, from a sporting perspective, what Marsch has done. Off the field, I mean, it's a slam dunk, right? You're going to find few better spokespeople for the game in this country and what Canada represents as an entity, and that's coming from an American himself. And I think that he ticks a lot of boxes for the Canadian Soccer Association, and is making everyone feel warm and cozy and all those good things, which that matters. Like, I'm not trying to downplay it. All of that matters. But is this just based upon something else, or the sporting side of things? But when I ask that question, it's a little bit of a no-brainer at this point. If you're going to have people stump up cash, charitable donations, in order to float your national team's manager's salary, don't you mitigate the risk in having to replace at some point? Like, I'd love to see the breakdown of how much the Canadian Soccer Association is contributing to Marsch's contract based upon what these donors have put forward in order to make, a very high paid coach adequately compensated in order to make Canada his focus. I really wonder on that, because the biggest expenditure on the balance sheet for Canada Soccer under the previous administration was John Herdman and Bev Priestman. It cost a lot of money. So when you mitigate some of that risk that comes along with paying a manager a very high salary, aren't you put in a situation where it seems like it's a little bit of a no-brainer? Some lines might be blurred along the way, Ollie. Like, does Jesse Marsch just respond to and report to the CSA? What's the role that these donors play? But at the end of the day, you mitigate the risk of committing yourself to potentially an albatross of a contract that you can't get out of.
You do, and I think that's another part of this is that, have the people who have financially contributed to extending Jesse Marsch's contract done so because they're big fans of Jesse Marsch, right? Not just because they're supporters of Canadian soccer. Are they more persuaded to make that kind of contribution because they believe in the guy who's in the job, they've got a good relationship with him, as opposed to, ex-candidate who is a mystery coming into the job potentially after the World Cup. So absolutely, I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah. You too, JGR? You kind of feel like that maybe changes the way that we maybe look at this a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it doesn't provide a roadblock, say things go south, right? Like if this isn't, that's the kind of flip side of it, is if this kind of ties you in, say things aren't working out. But Jesse Marsch did have some interesting comments in that interview he did with KJ this week about how a large part of this was mostly due to Kevin Blue. Like he said, like, I'm staying here as long as Kevin Blue. I thought that is interesting. So at least it indicates that as long as all parties are on the same page, whether that's off-field, on-field performance, etc. They seem to have a bit of synergy. But yes, there are risks that come with it because of the way it ties it down.
Kevin, in a way, is an ultimate like perfect, boss, for the lack of a better term, for Jesse Marsch, because Kevin will acknowledge this. He doesn't know much about the game, like at all, like the game on the field. So he kind of stays in his lane, which is operating the CSA, and allows Marsch to focus and worry about the football side of things. That doesn't happen everywhere in the world. Like there's a lot of people that like to meddle and different opinions that will likely sway things one way or the other. Like Jesse really has full autonomy here in a place where he gets a lot of positive press. Like it's a good spot for Jesse Marsch, and I understand right now why he would want to stay. But let's ask the question here, AJR, because you alluded to it just a moment ago. What does he need to do or get out of this group or the future group that's coming through? What does he need to do from a footballing perspective to warrant another 4 years in charge?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to do. I mean, it starts this summer because obviously now that the extension signed, that's more pressure. Like I mentioned, if you flame out, you're in theory you're staying, right? I mean, that's what this commitment signifies. So first off, have a good World Cup, show that the work you've done over 2 years, that this team can be closer to the team we saw at Copa America and less the team we saw at the Gold Cup last year in Nations League, where maybe they fell short of the expectations that they had set for themselves. After that, continue. And I mean, we've said it since 2021 when they made that run to the semifinals at the Gold Cup. This team needs to show that they can go and win something in CONCACAF. That's a no doubter. You have it set up that immediately, just like John Herdman had the chance in 2023, Jesse Marsch in 2027 is going to have the chance to play in the Nations League final again and have another Gold Cup. You absolutely need to at least reach the final in one, if not both of those tournaments, and win. I say reach the final because sometimes finals can be volatile. You reach that stage, but then you come up short like it happened in 2023. And then from there, you got to develop. And because let's be honest, with the new World Cup format, 2030, you should sleepwalk there. So get to that tournament, do well. 6 teams are coming out of CONCACAF. If Canada's not among the 6 teams in CONCACAF, there are bigger issues at play that would obviously be a big red flag. So 2030, how can you develop this program that, like Ollie mentioned earlier, a lot of your core of this team are going to be 30 or younger too. We forget guys like Ismail Kone, Nathan Saliba, like they'll be in their prime by that tournament. Guys who are, in their early 20s now are going to be as well in that prime. Can you find a way to get this team to peak for 2030? So I think there's a lot to do over the next 4 years. And I think it's going to, winning a trophy and continuing to progress are going to be the big indicators for me.
Ollie, what about you? What on the field has to happen?
Well, I agree that, like, if you come out of this generation of players without having won a trophy in CONCACAF, like, you're feeling like you haven't maximized their potential, right? And I know it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, win the Nations League or win the Gold Cup. As like, yeah, thanks. Like, obviously, we're trying to do that, but not to be too results oriented about it. These moments do matter, right? In continuing to grow the game in this country and continuing to keep people engaged across the country, not just when the World Cup comes around or when the Copa America comes around. If you can lift a trophy, if you can produce those kinds of moments, I think that has a significant impact that's lasting. So that's obviously got to be a massive priority. I think we are going to learn a lot at this World Cup, as I kind of alluded to before. And it's not just, if Canada gets to the round of 16, it's a success. And if they lose on penalties in the round of 32, it's a failure. I understand these margins can be very fine. But I think within the games themselves, as we saw in 2022, you learn a lot about where you're at, about your shortcomings, your strengths, how you compare to the rest of the world. And I think that's going to then inform what the next steps look like on the pitch in terms of progressing this team, developing the style of play, bringing through hopefully a new generation of players as well over the next 4 years. So we'll see this summer.
Developing the style of play is an interesting one because Jesse's not pragmatic. Like, we know the style of play that he's trying to get this team to play at the highest level possible. Will it work in international football, like over the long haul? I don't know the answer to that question, but there's a lot of people like Atiba and Julian de Guzman that absolutely support this way of playing. And we'll see if that defines the way that Canadians are going to play football, at least over the short term here. I just want to say before we wrap up and ask one more question. Like if everything does go to plan, like, it's easy to turn to what if in terms of a doom and gloom perspective, but what if he achieves incredible things over this World Cup, over the next couple years with the Canadian national team? He's still just 52 years old. And what if his stock, continues to increase? Maybe that puts Canada in a good position, Ollie. Like, I have a hard time thinking that if everything lines up the way that we in Canadian soccer would like to see it, that Jesse Marsch would be here anyways in 4 years' time. Like that is far-fetched for me to think that Marsch will, even with this new contract in hand, and I'm being an optimist here, that Marsch would see out this deal to begin. Like a lot of things would have to happen for that to be the case for me.
It's possible. Like if you do a fantastic job and then, some big job comes up, whether in the international game or returning to the club game, of course, like I don't think there's really much you can do if you're Kevin Blue to protect against that. He'll feel he's done his part to protect against it as much as he can by extending the contracts now and maybe preempting some of that after the World Cup if they were to have a really good tournament and he was unsigned. Beyond that, you hope that this guy's commitment is real through the 2030 World Cup as much as he says it is, and I have no reason to doubt that. And in your back pocket, I think everyone in that kind of position in football has to have a plan B. Even if you completely 100% believe that Jesse Marsch is here for 4 years no matter what, you have to be prepared for that. So I'm sure they will be, but I think they've done what they can to secure his future. I'm
going to say 10% chance he's here in 2030, AGR.
Wow.
What percentage? What percentage? And just this is football we're talking about. Managers just don't stay long term. It's a carousel. Things move fast. 10% AGR. Are you raising
I'd say a little higher than that. I mean, at this point, I don't know because, after 22, I was convinced John Herdman would have made it till 2026. How wrong I was on that. So I'll say higher than 10%. Although I'll say things have changed too. Like you just to your point about the synergy in the future. Like this Canadian program now has a director of football and a Kenneth Heiner Mahler, and that's another guy that Jesse Marsch spoke about this week working with. Like, things are being put in place so that if for whatever reason Marsch leaves, it feels like Canada will at least have, like, it feels like Marsch wouldn't leave this team in the lurch. And I think that's nice because sometimes you see it from coaches. They're a bit self-serving and they're, kind of looking out for themselves. At least from what we've seen, for all his faults, he's proven that he's pretty selfless about this program. And that'll at least be nice that if for whatever reason this doesn't work out, he'll be leaving the job in a better place than maybe when he picked it up.
Well put. We'll leave it at that. Canada, for one thing we know, will not be remaining in the marshy middle. They've committed to Jesse for 4 more years.